Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix, great general, statesman, war hero, and a dictator. He gained a reputation for his severity both in war and in statescraft. Sulla was one of those crazy people who marched upon Rome and decided to do it again, then take over it, become a dictator, and make sure those who crossed him were worse off than the citizens of Athens, which he razed to the ground. His abilities and playstyle really shows this, with his abilities of Whip, Fortify, and the dreaded Proscription, which we're gonna take a look at in detail. So let's first take a look at using Whip to quickly construct fortifications. So here you see SunTzu's infantry hidden in the bushes while his opponent is slowly marching by. He has used his Whip to quickly construct or whip out these stakes right before the enemy could come in, and because they did not notice it, just look at this damage. The front row suffers tremendous damage, around 40% of their health. Without any melee engagement, this has allowed SunTzu to establish a great strategic advantage. Now moving on to Whip in combat and Fortify. Sulla's main role in battle is support. And as a support, he has got a few abilities that both make him stronger and make the enemy weaker. His abilities are very well tailored to synergize with both infantry and javelin. So let's take a look at his abilities one by one. The first ability, Whip. So here we see an melee engagement with all of his abilities on. Whip, what it allows you to do, it increases your melee speed by 30%, reduces deployable construction time by 74% at tier 10, melee weapon penetration damage and melee attack by 80%. The only drawback is that it also reduces your morale. So, we are watching the battle. Have you noticed something? He did 4,000 damage while receiving none. So the reason for that is our second ability, Fortify. In tier 10, it reduces your speed by 72%, increases your charge deflect by 10%, increases your shield melee defense by 200%. The shield defense for this unit is currently 82, which is great. This is added on top of their melee defense, which is 62, making them a powerhouse when it comes to melee. So the opponent's only choice is to surround him, but the reinforcements is here, and here they are. And now let's take a look at Proscription. Proscription is a pretty interesting ability in the sense that it debuffs you as well. So this unit has activated Proscription. It has debuffed its opponent, so let's take a look at the opponent. As you can see, all of their units have been debuffed. However, and this debuff is very strong, I mean, it is minus 60% melee attack, almost cancelling Germanicus's Vengeance, and minus 8% movement speed. This is pretty good, as you can imagine. As you might also think that it's a drawback that you get it as well, but only the unit that activates it is affected by the Proscription. The other friendly units are not. As such, if you activate it on your javelins, only your javelins, which do not even use the melee attack function, will be affected, while your units will safely be fighting the enemy without receiving any damage most of the time. And now let's take a look at Sulla in full powered action, where he is fighting in support of his allies. Let's slow this down a bit. So now with his fortification active, he's not receiving any damage from the enemy, and the enemy is doing very little damage thanks to the Proscription right here. The only thing they can do is retreat, but their way is blocked. And now with these javelins shooting at them, this is just a downright massacre. Looks like the prescription has expired. No, it has not. Now, mind you, you will still receive damage from abilities such as Shield Bash and Horse Kick, even when you do not, even when the enemy should not normally be able to do damage to you. And right here, by sacrificing just one Palantini, SunTzu here managed to kill at least 2, maybe even 3 players while supporting 2 other players, preventing them from receiving damage. After all, the war is not just about killing the enemy, but also preserving your own forces. And so that was Sulla. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Coming up next, we've got an interview with a Tier 10 Sulla player, SunTzu himself. He's a good friend of mine, and I'd like to thank him for joining us and help us understand Sulla's role in the team. Alright, and here we have the extra section of our Sulla tutorial. We have a special guest, an expert on Sulla, a Tier 10 Sulla player who's got some really nice tricks, who he has shown on display multiple times. I give you the one and only SunTzu! Say hello, SunTzu!
Hey guys, though I'm not really an expert on Sulla, but that's okay.
I mean, for God's sake, you are Tier 10 on Sulla.
Yeah.
That counts for something. But, so, as we were saying, Sulla, as it is displayed, is a defensive general, but I personally believe he can be a great asset as a support general, like an alternative to Caesar, and can do some great stuff with his abilities, some very unorthodox tactics. But let's hear from the expert himself. SunTzu, can you please describe us Sulla and his role in the game?
My opinion, I think Sulla is mainly for going into the fray and just debuffing the enemy and lowering their melee attack stats. And he can also bait out enemy vengeances, because there's a lot of players who use Germanicus, and he's really good at baiting out their vengeances.
Premaculate Evangination? No,
there's a lot of players that use
premature Vengeancination.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, carry on.
Yeah, and the way I use Sulla is I mainly just try to lay down traps wherever I can, like mainly in the main grass or in trees, so that when players push and they push through those areas that they can't see and they don't have any vision into them, they'll run into those stakes and get their men killed, which that way can disrupt the enemy a lot more.
That's very interesting. That's a pretty interesting trick for the play that the Sulla brings. What would you say? Can you give us a bit more advanced tactics? What sets Sulla apart from other generals?
Well, for one thing, he's really good at taking out enemies' melee attack stats, like for instance, Miltiades drop shields. No, break ranks. His prescription completely negates the bonus melee attack that ability brings, and also, hold on, I'm trying to see something here.
No problem. I can edit out the pauses; those are no problem.
Okay. And also, his whip gives a really good movement speed buff, and it also increases the attack effectiveness of those units that have it. For instance, it gives a plus 80% attack melee.
Yeah, even for
bonus.
a short duration. Even for a short duration. Could you please tell us how the prescription works?
Oh, the prescription works as one unit activates the prescription, and every enemy unit that is around that unit that has the prescription engaged will also be affected by the debuffs that shows for the unit. For example, prescription gives negative melee attack, and it also slows down the unit. And so if that unit activates prescription, that unit will also be affected by those debuffs, but it will also affect every single enemy unit around it in the radius.
So the units do not need to be engaged in order for prescription to work.
No, they can just sit outside and just chill while it's just having that ability activated.
Very similar to Caesar's Vici in that sense, isn't it?
Yeah, very similar.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what do you say? How do you see Sulla being utilized in team games in the future when things come a bit more into fruition? Are you seeing him as a bit of a support general, like an alternative to Caesar, or do you think he's going to have a dedicated role?
Yeah, I think he's definitely gonna have a dedicated role. He can run in and just block areas up with his stakes. If you decide to bring him, he can try to bait out enemy vengeances. So like you go in and then you wait until the enemy Dramaticus activates his vengeance, then you activate Whip and you just run away and just wait until the vengeance goes away, and then you can bait out abilities like that. You can go in, you can help utilize the prescription, his ultimate ability, to help your allies fight. And he has a lot of roles he can play.
Yeah, it's a commander that has got a lot of utility, as you're saying, and we're gonna see in the future how the abilities change, how new commanders interact with him, and we're gonna see how things pan out. But thanks for joining us, thanks for your great insights, and we will see you next time.
All right, see you guys.
I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and if you want some more arena action, check out the playlist on the side, and we'll see you next time.